morning, everyone. I'm Fran from the Pendleton County Public Library, and I hope everybody's doing really good this morning. Thank you so much for joining in. We are going to be recording this program, and we will have a link posted on our Facebook page. So you'll be able to, let me get that out of the way, you'll be able to view it later on if you need to go back for reference, or if you want to share it with someone who did not get to see this program. I'm often asked how I organize my genealogy. People say, well, you know, you have so much paper. Sorry about that. I got sidetracked for a second there. You have so much paper. How do you keep up with it all? I have gone back and forth. I have that. I've had that problem forever. I think when we start genealogy, we don't even begin to realize how much paper we're going to acquire. But we may have a way of getting all that paper. So my big aha moment was packing up and moving, and I've been doing genealogy. I started probably 30 years ago, but I've probably been working on it 20 years pretty straight. And moving around from state to state and from town to town throughout those years. I have had stuff in storage, couldn't find it, have duplicates now because of that, and it just creates a problem. So I've always been looking for the best way to keep my genealogy and to have it accessible, because if it's in storage or it's in the garage, it's not always accessible when you need it to be. So I've, over the years, have finally decided that Google Drive really worked for me, and it was the best avenue for me. It's everywhere I am, because all I need is an internet connection, and I can log into my Google account and pull up my records. So if I'm off researching one line in my family and I stumble onto something for another line, and I'm thinking, okay, now who are these people again? Let me think. I've got my stuff, I can access it. And I don't have to carry these files around with me to do that. They're safe. I've lost flash drives. I've lost paper. So these are relatively safe. It's cloud, basically a cloud storage. So I'm going to right now share my screen with you. Let's see. So you can see my Google Drive. There you go. Google's not pretty. It doesn't have a lot of colors. There's not a lot of flash and dash to it, but it's very functional. What I like about it is, as you can see over here on the far left where it says storage, you get 15 gigabytes of free storage with a Google account. All you need is like a Gmail email address, and you're good to go. This comes with it. And if you're taking pictures of, like I know a lot of people go to tombstones, to cemeteries and take tombstone pictures, you've also got photos here that you can store your photos in too. But anyway, for Google, you can see I've used 9.1 gigabytes of my total amount of space, and I've got a ton of stuff in here. So it does hold a lot. You can also buy storage, and it's really cheap to buy. So that's another advantage. If you do get to the point you have to buy storage, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to do that. I use colors to sort my folders. Actually, this is my genealogy folder. I'm not showing you my Drive folder because it's got a lot of other stuff on it. But this is my genealogy folder in my regular Drive. I have set up a folder for every surname that I'm researching. And I also have some, like you can see here, what's in the green. Those are not surnames of family members. Those are just general information folders that I use from time to time. Don't use some of them, I don't use more often than others. But I use my Google, well, let me back it up first. When you're setting up your folders, Google will automatically default and put things in alphabetical order for you. If you don't want that, then you have to set your file up with that in mind. But for me, to be able to hunt for mine in alphabetical order is helpful. As you can tell, I've got quite a few things in here. The pink is the color. You can just right click and it enables you to change the color of the folder that you want. I use the pink, purpley pink, for the surnames that are my direct lines. I do research for a lot of other people and I put those in the gray. The brown, like Billiter and Collier and Dance, Fogel, Brand, those are people who have married into my lines, and for some reason or another, I needed to do research on them. Probably Dances, because I was getting a lot of William Dances, more than the town of Collinsville could hold. So I had to do this, had to go into the Dances and do some research to kind of eliminate some of the extra Williams that I had. So I kept my records. I learned a long time ago to go ahead and keep everything you're researching, even if it's for someone else, because it always comes back to bite you if you don't. I've had, people who their computer crashed and they wanted to know if I still had the research I did for them. I've had people contact me and say, I never did get that research you sent me, and it may be 6 months after I sent it to them. And then I have to go back and retrace my steps. So I've just hung on to it. You may notice the looks like little people in some of these folders. That means I have shared that folder with someone. And to share it, you just, every folder you go into is going to have this little caret, and you just click on it, and one of your options is share. And you just type in their email address when you get that screen. That's kind of what it looks like. You want to watch this drop-down menu, because you can set it up to view only or to organize, add, and edit. So you need to think about how much space you want, leeway you want to give the person you're sharing. Do you want them to be able to add files in? Because if they can add, they can also, or edit. If they can edit, they can delete. So you have to think about that before you choose that route. Okay, I'm going to have to click done to be done. Okay, that's kind of just some general information. Now I'm going to kind of show you how I've organized it. Even when I started using Google Drive to organize my genealogy, I didn't have a clear-cut plan. At first, I knew I wanted a folder for every surname, and I just dumped stuff into that folder. Okay, so it looked nice and pretty on my screen, but it wasn't in reality very nice or very pretty. So I kind of have cleaned up some of the files, but some of them I haven't. So I'll show you how I was doing it and how I am doing it now. And for some of my surnames, I'm probably going to continue to do it the old way, because sometimes you just don't have that much information and it really doesn't matter. And maybe you're not going to have that much information, especially like for some of these where I've researched for other people. I don't go into that kind of detail. The first one I'm going to open for you is the car folder. And you can see I've set up surname or subfolders, I guess you would call them. Down here, the papers where it says parents, Henry and Polly, and DNA match with Carr and J, which is Jenkins. Those are just papers that don't fit into any of the folders. So I just dropped them there. This one is kind of different from some of my others. And so that's why I'm going to show you another one or two before we're done. But for every one of these folders that I set up, I start with, if they're a Pendleton County family, there's probably something in the Barton papers on them. So I always have a Barton papers folder, and that's just what it is. And I will give you a hint on how not to name these Barton papers. You will have to give them a name because you save it as a file. I've done what you don't want to do. That's a lot of typing. Fortunately, the cars don't have a lot of paper. I found the best way to do that is to just number them. And it keeps them in order on the way they were on the in the Barton papers. So if he has transcribed a court case for you, you will keep that in order if you number the files or the papers. I have never seen a paper, a file from Barton that has more than 3 digits worth of numbered pages in it. So in other words, I would want to change this one to 001. If you don't name it 001 and you start with just 1, your next number is going to be 10, your next all the way up to 19, and then you're going to get 2 and 20 to 29, okay? Because it does put them in number order as well as alpha order, and it doesn't seem to register the difference between 1 and 10, the jump in between there. So we'll go back to the car folder. I've downloaded some books online about the cars and their allied families, and I've put them in the books folder. I would suggest doing that because it doesn't just cover one family, it's going to cover the whole line probably. I would also suggest always having a fan folder. In genealogy, we talk about fan, friends, associates, and neighbors. This comes in handy with your brick walls. You may not have a brick wall in that line right now, but you will if you get back far enough. You'll eventually hit a wall. And in the fans, I don't think I have anything much. Oh, I do. I've got all kinds of stuff in here, apparently. I just did some general searches. I put some Excel files in here where I've listed, all the cars in Kentucky from 1820 to 1830, for example. So I'm kind of researching or at a certain place in Kentucky. I also always keep a "who are these people" file. I name it differently sometimes depending on the mood that I was in when I created it. We always run into people, they may be living around your known family descendants and ancestors, but these people don't seem to be connected to anybody. That's where I dump them. Or if I'm looking at a newspaper search, maybe in St. Louis for something else, and I run across a named car in there, I would probably clip that. And it could wind up in this, or it could be in these miscellaneous clippings. Because the cars go back to Kerr, that was the original spelling of the name, I've created a folder there and I've collected some things in it. I always have a folder with the person that is the furthest away from me on that family tree that I can go. For this one, it's unknown car. And I'll show you why I have an unknown for a first name instead of a real name. You can notice I did those in blue. That tells me that that's my ancestor, and it gives me just quick access to it. I know that James and Thomas are definitely brothers. I can't prove it on paper, and I don't know who their father is. So that's what, because I don't know who their father is, that's why I named him unknown. I'm working on proving them. But the Thomas Carr people and the James Carr people both have the same oral history about how we are verbatim, about how we are related. So I know it's true. So that's why I wanted to collect information on both of them. I believe Robert is a brother as well. So I've dumped them into unknown Carr. And hopefully I will break that wall and figure out who it is. So within that folder, I named a folder for each child belonging to James Carr and Betsy Malone. Wife Betsy is in pink. I keep the wife's information with the husband. So this pink just is a placeholder. It tells me I need to go to the Malone folder if I want to find out about her parents or siblings. Again, in blue is who I'm descended from. I've made some mistakes in these so that I can show you. If you'll notice, I wanted to put them in birth order. So Google defaults to sorting them in name order, alpha order. I wanted them in birth order. So to do that, I needed to number them, put a number in front of them, or you could go A, B, C, D, E for first, second, third, fourth, and on. But you got to be picky about how you do it. With Google, you have to be really consistent in file naming. You see William Henry Carr, I have no number. So he gets defaulted to the end because he's a W. That's the end of the alphabet, right? Close to the end. The first child is Rebecca, but I didn't put a pound sign in front of her. So she gets pushed after all the other numbers that have the number sign or the pound sign. I put a space between the number sign and the number 8 for Rachel, and that defaults to make her first because the space would come before a number. To correct that, you just go into rename, and in the case of Rachel, I can just drop out the space and it's going to put her where she belongs here. For Rebecca, again, rename, and I can go in and put in this pound sign, and she's going to go back there. Henry is number 2 child, so I will put him as 2 with a space afterwards, because if I don't, that also messes up things. So now they're back in birth order. What I would simply do then is just load up their family's information in there. Some people work these lines out, and I'm one of those. So inside each of these, I would have a set of folders like this with their children. Some of the families, if I don't have much information on them, I might just dump it in here like this. These are some files I need to move. As you notice, James Carr is spelled K-A-R-R on his marriage bond. This is his folder, so any papers to do with him, I just drop in here loose. These, like Betty here, I can move that. And to move it, you just right-click again, and you go up to move, and I can put her in Henry's folder because that's where she belongs. Then I can also check which of Henry's children she belongs under and go to that one, and I can put her in her father's file as well and just move her there. So you can move files around. I can even take one of these and put it in another folder if I want, just by clicking on it and dragging it and scooting it. Then I have notes on this family that I keep in this others notes. These notes belong to other people that they've shared with me. So I just have a folder in here for them. We go to William, then again, you see who I descend from, and Henry. Here's all of his stuff, including I have a picture of him in here, and then on, and there's their children, and it just goes on and on. To go back to my genealogy, I can just do that. And so that's kind of how I set up the Carr file. I've set up other files like that. And I like that because it works for me. I can always find them by doing this. And I keep a tree on ancestry.com that I can always go back to as well. I don't collect census papers in this file because I'm watching my space for one, and for two, I have it on my ancestry public tree. So I can always go into that and get those papers if I want. That's the way I look at it. You might want to put a census record in there. That's totally, what you put in there is totally up to you, but there's a lot of flexibility with it. I do most of my research on Asbury's. That's my favorite line for a lot of reasons. Some of you all know those reasons. And let me pull this up a little bit. I'm going to show you this because I have some interesting things going on with it too. I always have in the general folder, I have people here that I don't know exactly who they belong to, and I probably should put them in the unknowns, but I haven't. I've got notes that I've gotten from other sources, a map of where Asbury's lived in Kentucky at one point in time. And then I have this document down here, which Joe is he? I've got a Joseph, I don't know who he is because there's a lot of Josephs. You can create documents inside this just by going to the new and choosing Google Docs, which works like Word, and you can select a blank document. That's what I've done. Actually, these are Word documents that I've dropped in here. You can upload them from your computer, or you can drag it off your desktop and drop it in. You can also do a Google Sheet, which is your spreadsheets from here, and it's whatever folder you have opened at the time you create that is the folder it will be created in. So that's kind of a handy little feature too. For the Asburys, I do have the Barton papers. I do have the fan folder. You can see Coleman is my ancestor because he's in blue. I have, instead of books, I have the Virginia Quarterly. The Virginia Quarterly ran a family history on the Asburys over a series of publications, and I've downloaded those and put them in there. Here's my who are they file. But you'll notice I've got some of these in with a yellow folder. They are, Coleman is my brick wall. We'll start with that. I believe he comes from Thomas and Asbury and Anne Reed's family. So I'm researching them actively. They could go in my fan folder, okay? There's nothing wrong with that, but because I'm actively researching them, I've kind of pulled them out here just to save me a step. Thomas Lancaster family, the Presleys and the Neals all should go in this folder. And I didn't put them in here because I wanted to show you how to move multiple folders. You just click, push down on Control, and then I can drag them into my fan folder. And it's going to tell me that because those were shared, we'll share them with everyone who can see the shared folder, fan folder, and they were shared anyway. So I just click OK. So you can move multiple files at once. In the Thomas and Anne, I have proven children of them and information on those as well, because like I said, I'm actively researching them as potential grandparents of Coleman. For Coleman, again, I've numbered the children. He has 2 wives. This is the one I descend from. This is the other one. This is my grandfather. So these are all the siblings of his, the full siblings. However, Grandpa and second wife had 3 siblings. So I parked them in her folder. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with putting them out here as number 11, 12, and 13 if you want. For Amy Compton, she also had 1 child that was not Coleman's. So I've parked him in her folder as well. That's an exception rather than a rule to not having anything in the wife's folder. You notice I've got some green ones. That's just a signal to me that these ladies' information, I'm kind of torn here on these. I may keep their information in their folder, but I am a Doan descendant as well. So I'm a direct Doan. So their husbands have information in their family files. The only reason I'm kind of hedging on keeping them here is that one of the girls, we don't know who her husband's father was. So in that case, I'm probably going to have all of his information in her folder rather than in the Doan folder, because I don't really know where he goes, but I will have a dummy folder for him. And that's what I call these, that I don't have anything in, are dummy folders. Here is a case I wanted to show you too. It's the same article. That is this. Let me see if I can show this better. Okay, no. It's the same article. This family went to California in a wagon train, and they were interviewed by the press when they got there. I have saved it multiple times, probably from multiple places. This one I've labeled them differently. And when you do that, you have two of the same paper in here. So if you want to delete, it's just right click again and remove. If you want to rename, it's right click and rename. I did not put this in the children's file because 3 of the kids are named. Elisha, being Amy's child, is mentioned in here. Coleman, being Coleman Jr., is mentioned, and Agnes's husband is likely mentioned. The initials match up as him. So I'll just go ahead and delete this one right now because I don't need it. I've got one paper. And if I do decide I need to keep a copy, you can still copy it from this point. Let me see right here at make a copy. And it will show up in this file, and then you can move it to wherever you want to move it. So that's kind of the story on that one. And then, of course, the next wife and all the kids. And I wanted to show you this one because this is his wife, Delilah, but I descend from Lucy, the oldest daughter. So this is where I end my folders for the Asbury line. From this point, everything is going to be in the low folder under her husband, William Thomas. So, you know, again, that's a preference. It's how you want to do it. But that's kind of how I've done it. It works for me. I did want to take a couple of seconds here and show you what I was doing to begin with. Let's see. I'll find a folder here because probably Abercrombie is a good one. Nah, not really. Doesn't have a lot of stuff dumped in it. I forgot which one I was going to show you. Let me see. Adams. That one might be good. Yeah. I started up with, this was just some pictures, and I have no idea what this is right now. I can't tell you. I had organized them by obituaries and death indexes, have been all thrown in here. No matter who you are, I threw it in there. I have a book here. I've got letters, and I've got court documents all tossed in here for the war years. I've got a letter that came home. I would have military records in some of those. That reminds me, I wanted to show you that in the Asbury folder here. Military, Civil War. I've got John and Bob in here. They need to be moved, and I can do that by just going to move to, and then back out of that and back out of the military. I want to put them in Asbury. They descended from Coleman through Jacob. They were both sons of his. So John has a folder here, and I would move his military record there. And it's giving me the same message, which is fine. And then Bob is the same way, move to. So it is, you know, you do have to kind of think about where you're going. I want to go back to the original root folder, which is military, then back to the Asburys, then to who he descends from and who he descends from. And Robert is here. Okay. And then I've moved it. So now I don't need that military folder anymore. Well, I don't need the Civil War folder, so I can remove it or not. Okay. For the Revolutionary Wars, I don't know who these guys are. I think I know. I've not been able to really prove it. So I have some research. I think that they were in Lee's Legion. And then I have this really nifty little list of people Asburys who served in the American Revolution that I'm going to look at. And some of them I have. The problem with what you're going to spend the most time on to start with is scanning these documents. These were downloaded from Fold 3, so that's not really a problem. It's electronic going to electronic. The real problem comes from, just having the paper and you have to scan it. It takes time. But in the end, I think it's worth it. This one I should probably move to the, let's see, other Asbury's, who are they? And I'll just leave it as Revolutionary War because I can't really attach them to anything. And then I can delete this folder. Pretty simple process there. If you are new to Drive and you're not familiar with using Google at all, you can just oh, that isn't what I wanted to do. There, I can't do two things at once, talk and show my screen. So forgive me for that. That you can Google and check for videos on how to do that. If once you get it set up and you really have questions about organizing your genealogy, we do offer a one-on-one genealogy program. So when we're open back up, you can schedule that appointment and come in and we can actually sit there and work on it together. You can also email me with your questions. You send it to the library's help desk and it will get to me, or you can email me directly at fcar@pcplibrary.org or helpdesk@pcplibrary.org. Either one will get me. And I can try to help you that way. We can also, if you're having trouble with just setting up folders, moving around, moving folders around, we can get you a Tech Assist appointment as well to help you with maneuver and learn how to use Drive. So you, again, just contact the library to set that up. I hope that this program today has been beneficial and helpful to you. And if you would like, like I said, this video will be available for a little while yet, and on our YouTube page, and our link is posted on Facebook. I just thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching this on Facebook, I will be monitoring the comments, so you can also ask questions there if you'd like. Have a great day. Enjoy the beautiful weather. See you later. Bye-bye.